Hello, I'm Jessica Isaacs, Dean of Instruction at Seminole State College. Today's video is a short step-by-step guide to help you make your existing Word documents accessible. By learning to use the Accessibility Checker in Microsoft Word, you can take any of your existing class assignments, exams, or other Word documents and follow a few simple steps to ensure they comply with the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, also known as ADA WCAG 2. The 2 indicates the level of conformity required for state colleges and universities. These quick, practical steps are perfect for busy faculty and can help you ensure that your course materials are accessible and easy for every student to use. Let's get started. I am sharing my screen with you, and you can see my existing Word document, which is a class assignment from several semesters ago. In its current condition, it is not accessible. However, I want to use it in a class I'm teaching next semester, so I'm required by the federal ADA WCAG 2 guidelines to make it accessible. In addition to running the Accessibility Checker, there are 3 very basic design concepts to keep in mind when making a Word document accessible. First, remember to use a clear, legible font with clear contrast. Avoid fancy fonts. Also, avoid dark type on dark backgrounds or light type on light backgrounds. A clear font like Calibri or Times in black type on a white background is always going to be the easiest to read. Remember, your goal is to make your documents accessible, not to make them fancy. Second, you should provide alternative text descriptions for any images you include in your document. The purpose of alternative text is to provide screen readers with descriptions that can be read aloud for students who have impaired vision and cannot see the images. The Accessibility Checker can guide you in creating these alternative text descriptions. You should also be selective about which images you include and try to avoid including images that don't add value to the document or are purely for decorative purposes. While some decorative-only images can be okay, use them sparingly or not at all. Third, you should keep in mind that underlining typically indicates a link to a website to a screen reader. Instead of underlining words for emphasis in your documents, use bold or all caps. Now, with these 3 concepts in mind, let's take another look at my Word document. Here is my non-compliant Word document. The first element I notice, even before I run the Accessibility Checker, is the very fancy, hard-to-read font for my title. So, let's change that to a clearer font like Calibri. Wow, that is immediately better. However, my document still isn't accessible. The simplest way to determine which edits I need to make is to run the Accessibility Checker and make the recommended changes. To find the Accessibility Checker, at the top of the screen, click on Review. Then click on Check Accessibility. On the drop-down menu, also select Check Accessibility. Notice that the Accessibility Assistant opens at the far right side of the screen. I'm going to click on the Keep Going box now. The first issue the Accessibility Checker finds for me to correct is hard to read contrast. I'm going to select the black color for the font to resolve the issue so that my text is clearly visible with good contrast. That made quite a change. Still, in the Color and Contrast box on the right side of the screen, under the Accessibility Assistant, you can see that there are 2 more instances of hard-to-read text contrast that I need to resolve in order to make the document accessible. Let's click on that box. The Accessibility Assistant instructs me to try a different color to resolve the issue. I'm going to select the black color again for my text. And I have one more instance to correct, so I will select black again. This is now much better with sharper, easier to read contrast between the dark text and the background. However, even though the Accessibility Assistant seems satisfied with the particular revision for the color and contrast, I can make the contrast even more accessible by making the background lighter. I don't really need an orange background at all because it adds no meaning to my document. So, I've decided to go back to the black text on the white background to make the document even easier and more accessible to read. Now, let's return to the Accessibility Assistant on the right side of our screen. The next issue to address is in the Media and Illustrations box. Notice that this box indicates that I am missing alt text for 2 images in my document. I'm going to click on that box to see where I need to include alternative text. The first image for which I need to include alt text is the photo I inserted of our class textbook. While the Accessibility Assistant provides a suggestion for alt text, it is usually not as specific or relevant as it needs to be. So I will insert my own alternative text to describe the image by typing in my description in the box. I have typed a photograph of the cover of the class textbook, Public Speaking for College and Career, 11th edition by Hamilton Gregory. Then I will click Save. This image adds important meaning to my document because I want to make sure the students are aware that the page numbers I mention in my assignment sheet correspond with that particular edition of our class text. The Accessibility Assistant immediately takes me to the next image for which I need to create an alternative text description. This is an image of our SSC logo at the end of the document. It does not add any meaningful context to my document. I included it just for decorative purposes. So, I can handle this in a few different ways. Since it's decorative only, I could simply remove it. However, let's say I like the way it looks and I want to leave it in my document. In that case, I could provide an alternative text description for it, such as SSC logo. Or, since it doesn't add any kind of significant meaning, I can click on Mark as Decorative in the missing alt text box in the Accessibility Assistant. If an image is marked as decorative only, no alt text description is required. Screen readers will simply pass over decorative-only images. I'm going to click on Mark as Decorative for this image. Now, notice that there are check marks on all of the boxes under the Accessibility Assistant, and the top of the column says, "Looks good, no issues found." This means that my document has now met the basic accessibility requirements. We have one more step to go. Remember those 3 concepts I mentioned earlier? They were 1. Use clear font with clear contrast. 2. Include alternative text descriptions for images. And 3. Avoid underlining for emphasis because screen readers assume underlined words are links to websites. We've addressed concepts 1 and 2. Now, let's address number 3, avoid underlining for emphasis. This is one aspect that the Word Accessibility Assistant will not flag, but it is considered to be part of best practices when creating accessible documents. Let's take a look at my document and revise any cases where I've underlined text for emphasis. I can change my underlined text to be in bold for emphasis or in all caps, whichever I prefer. In the case of this document, I'm simply going to remove the underlining and leave the bold text for emphasis. There. Now I've run the Accessibility Assistant, made the recommended changes, and double-checked my document for the 3 main concepts for accessibility. I can now save and use my fully compliant ADA WCAG2 accessible document. Thanks for joining me today, and thanks for making SSC documents usable for everyone. For help, please reach out to SSC Communications. For more detailed information on ADA WCAG2 requirements, please visit ada.gov.